General Hospital spoilers for Tuesday. June 24th reveal that just when Drew Quartermaine believed he had finally secured his position, personally and publicly, with Willow's surprising decision to proceed with their wedding. An unexpected piece of information landed in his hands like a grenade disguised as a gift. What was meant to be a triumph, a symbolic victory over scandal and chaos, has instead cracked open a far more volatile chapter. Willow's agreement to marry him, though presented as a moment of unity, has triggered a chain reaction of revelations and recalibrations. For Drew, it isn't love that anchors this union, it's strategy. But with this new intel, he realizes that everything he's built is still hanging by a thread. And now, with tensions escalating behind the scenes and power shifting beneath his feet, Drew begins laying the groundwork for a far more aggressive move, targeting Michael Corinthos once again in what may become the most personal and dangerous confrontation yet. The timing couldn't be more unnerving. While wedding preparations are quietly underway, and Willow attempts to project emotional stability in the wake of her previous breakdown, Drew receives a confidential briefing, one implicating Michael in a behind-the-scenes alliance with Carly and Tracy. Possibly even connected to the wave of legal scrutiny Drew himself has narrowly avoided. The details are murky, but the implications are clear. Michael is no longer just a rival, he's a threat. And if Drew has learned anything from his fall from grace, it's that threats must be neutralized before they become narratives. He no longer sees Michael as family. He sees him as the next obstacle that must be discredited, dismantled, and pushed into the same abyss Drew once fell into. Only this time, Drew intends to walk away clean. But the danger lies in Drew's desperation masked as ambition. With the wedding acting as a public stage, he begins laying psychological groundwork, subtly rewriting the story in his favor. That he has stood by Willow through collapse, that he has protected her, that Michael is the one who abandoned his family in the name of ego and control. He begins contacting media figures, floating quiet rumors, hinting that Willow's trauma may have roots in Michael's cruelty. At the same time, Drew accelerates financial moves to outmaneuver Michael's hold over ELQ, calling in favors, reactivating dormant partnerships, and aligning with Ezra Boyle to further shift the board in his favor. What's forming is not just a plan, it's an assault disguised as preparation. And it's happening while Willow stands unaware, believing she's walking toward stability when she's actually being led deeper into Drew's game of retaliation. The deeper truth is chilling. Drew isn't marrying Willow out of devotion. He's marrying her to consolidate control. And with the latest intel suggesting that Michael may be pushing to reobtain full custody of Wiley and Amelia, Drew sees the move not as parenting, but as provocation. To Drew, Michael has made this war personal again. And so Drew's preparing to strike, legally, financially, and emotionally. He will play the victim. He will play the hero. And when the timing is right, he will ensure that Michael is painted not as the concerned father, but as the manipulator who undermined a woman's mental health and a good man's love. What Drew doesn't realize, however, is that the more he plots in the shadows, the more he is drawing the attention of others, Jason, Carly, Tracy, who are beginning to sense that this engagement, this narrative of recovery is a facade wrapped around something much more sinister. And as Drew inches closer to launching his next campaign against Michael, he may be triggering the very forces that will rise to take him down. But for now, Drew believes he's winning again. He's regaining control. He has Willow's hand. He has the press's sympathy. And soon, if his plan succeeds, he'll have Michael's silence. Or so he thinks. Because in Port Charles, every move has a cost. And Drew Quartermaine may soon learn that no amount of manipulation can protect a man from the consequences of turning a wedding into a weapon. Trina no longer recognizes Curtis. The man who once stood as her compass, calm, principled, a grounding presence, has become a shadow version of himself, driven not by reason but by obsession. Ever since Willow agreed to marry Drew, something in Curtis shifted. His posture changed. His tone hardened. His eyes darkened. And while everyone else was caught up in the whirlwind of wedding announcements and media spin, Trina saw something no one else did, her father was unraveling. The man who once counseled her to seek truth and balance is now consumed by a mission so personal, so venomous, that it terrifies her. Curtis is no longer simply questioning Drew's intentions, he's hunting him. And Trina, stuck between loyalty and fear, has begun to uncover truths that will forever alter the way she sees the man who raised her. What began as suspicion quickly morphed into investigation. Curtis started making moves behind the scenes, whispers to lawyers, anonymous contacts with reporters, and discreet meetings with figures Trina knew all too well were tied to Ezra. Late-night phone calls. Locked drawers. Sudden disappearances. At first, Trina tried to dismiss it, telling herself he was just concerned, just trying to protect Willow or the family name. But then she found the files. Unencrypted, carelessly left open on a shared device. Documents that included a hidden medical scandal, notes on Drew's alleged connections to a failed clinical trial, and timelines that hinted at a theory Curtis hadn't dared say aloud, that Drew had knowingly participated in a cover-up that nearly cost Curtis his life, and ruined his marriage in the process. The moment she saw those files, Trina's world tilted. Because what she saw wasn't just anger, it was obsession. Curtis had built an entire narrative in his mind. One that connected Drew to every failure, every wound, every betrayal. And now, he was determined to expose him at any cost. Trina wanted to confront him, to ask if it was true. If he really believed all of this. But the more she watched him, the clearer it became that Curtis wasn't just preparing a defense. He was preparing an attack. And worse, he was trying to control her in the process. He reassured her constantly that she was safe, that everything he was doing was for her sake. But those reassurances now felt like a script, calculated, manipulative, rehearsed. And Trina, perceptive as ever, saw the shift. Curtis was no longer a father. He was a strategist. And she had become part of the narrative he was crafting. He told her he was stabilizing. That therapy was helping. That the pain was fading. But Trina didn't believe him. Every time he mentioned Drew, something in his voice cracked, like glass about to shatter. His desire to take Drew down had bled into every conversation. Even the ones that should have been about healing. He spoke of justice, but his words felt like vengeance. And Trina, who had survived trauma, betrayal, and loss, could now sense danger not in strangers, but in the people she loved. The real breaking point came when she overheard Curtis speaking about Michael. It wasn't just concern, it was calculation. He was speaking of Michael as if he were a pawn, a liability, a tool to be used in his greater war against Drew. The way Curtis spoke, cold, clipped, strategic, sent chills down her spine. She realized then that this wasn't about Drew anymore. It was about control. About rewriting history. About punishing everyone Curtis believed had betrayed him, even if they were innocent. And Trina, now painfully aware of how deep this spiral had gone, began to question everything. Was Curtis losing himself? Was this obsession born of unresolved pain, or had it always been there? Hidden beneath years of discipline and restraint? The more she thought about it, the more she realized, this wasn't just about Drew. This was about Curtis needing someone to blame for every scar that hadn't healed. And in his mind, Drew was the perfect scapegoat. Trina now lives in two worlds. In one, she is the loyal daughter, hoping desperately that her father will come back to himself. In the other, she is a young woman carrying the weight of terrible knowledge, terrified of what her father might do next. She sees the signs, the obsession, the detachment, the increasingly erratic behavior masked as purpose. She wants to believe he can be stopped before it's too late. But with every passing day, that hope grows dimmer. Curtis believes he's restoring order. That by eliminating Drew, he will regain his dignity, his family, his place in the world. But Trina sees the truth. He's about to destroy everything. And unless someone intervenes, the next shockwave in Port Charles won't come from Drew, Willow, or even Nina. It will come from Curtis. And Trina already grieving the man she once knew, may soon be forced to do the unthinkable, expose her own father, in order to save him. Nina is standing on the edge of a cliff, emotionally, politically, and personally. The announcement of Willow and Drew's upcoming wedding is not just another headline in Port Charles, it's a declaration of defeat for Nina. A signal that she is rapidly losing any influence she once had over her daughter. The very thought of Willow tying herself to a man like Drew, manipulative, calculating, and capable of disguising coercion as love, sends shivers down Nina's spine. She knows Drew too well. His clean-cut appearance hides a ruthless mind, and Nina fears that once Willow says, "I do," she'll be lost forever in a life shaped by emotional control, lies, and quiet devastation. But what can she do? Her voice has already been silenced, her presence minimized. No one is listening. No one is willing to fight for Willow. No one, until now. Unexpectedly, from the shadows of legacy and power, comes an unlikely offer, Tracy. Fierce, unrelenting, and equally infuriated by Drew's actions, Tracy is driven by her own reasons. She's watched Drew worm his way into the Quartermaine name, threatening the stability and legacy of a family she spent her life defending. His backroom deals, especially the one involving Ezra, have tainted the Quartermaine name, and Tracy has had enough. She doesn't trust Nina, never has. But in this moment, she sees something undeniable. Nina has motive. Nina has access. And most importantly, Nina has rage. Together, they might just be able to stop this wedding and dismantle Drew's ambitions once and for all. The alliance is quiet but calculated. Two women who once stood on opposite sides of every battle are now drawing up plans together, metaphorically locking arms in a mission driven by vengeance and protection. Nina uses her emotional tether to Willow to subtly inject doubt, planting reminders of Drew's past, his secrets, and his manipulations. Meanwhile, Tracy does what she does best, leverage power. She activates legal connections, reaches out to court officials, leans on old debts and long-standing influence within Port Charles's elite. She knows which strings to pull, and more importantly, how hard to pull them. It's not friendship, it's strategy. A coalition born not of shared ideals but of shared enemies. They speak rarely and only in code. Every glance exchanged across town meetings or charity galas is laced with intention. Every chance encounter is a calculated step in a much larger game. For the first time, Drew is not just facing quiet resistance. He's being hunted by two women who refuse to be underestimated any longer. And while Drew is busy framing his wedding to Willow as a new beginning, Nina and Tracy are already preparing the end. Their alliance is the kind of power play that could shatter not only the wedding, but reputations, custody agreements, financial alliances, and carefully curated public personas. This isn't about romance. It's about reclaiming control, dismantling a growing empire of manipulation, and reminding Port Charles that its most dangerous players aren't always men. As the date of the wedding creeps closer, the air grows tense. Invitations have been sent. Dresses have been chosen. But behind the scenes, something far more sinister is unfolding. Nina and Tracy aren't just trying to stop a ceremony, they're orchestrating a takedown. And when the dust settles, one thing will be clear: the most powerful women in Port Charles are no longer on the sidelines. They're leading the charge. Portia is seething with a fury that simmers just beneath the surface. And it's not just because of recent betrayals or disappointments, it's the growing realization that she is rapidly losing control over everything she thought she had anchored down. The landscape around her is shifting in unpredictable and dangerous ways, and at the center of that chaos is a new and deeply unsettling change involving Kai. The young man who once seemed like a safe, if distant, figure in Trina's orbit is now at the heart of a mystery that Portia can't ignore. Something about Kai has changed, his demeanor, his connections. The silent power moves he seems to be a part of, and that shift is triggering every maternal instinct Portia has. It isn't just paranoia, it's instinct. She's a doctor, a mother. And a woman who's been burned before by trusting too much and questioning too little. The whispers she's heard about secret meetings, hidden opportunities, and offers made to Kai under the table have only fueled her fear. The alliance between Kai and certain key figures, Drew among them, seems to be building into something calculated. Something meant to destabilize. And what terrifies Portia the most isn't just what Kai might do, it's how that will impact Trina. Because Trina, strong-willed and compassionate, has always had a weakness for fixing people, for seeing the best in those who walk the line between broken and dangerous. Portia sees it happening again, this time with higher stakes. The new control being exerted around her daughter isn't loud or aggressive, it's quiet, patient, and psychological. It's the kind of manipulation that seeps in through trust, through shared secrets, through emotional vulnerability. Portia fears that Trina doesn't realize she's being pulled into something far darker than she understands. And as a mother, that fear has become all-consuming. Portia is no longer content with standing on the sidelines, no longer willing to be the voice of calm. The stakes are too high. The shadows surrounding Kai have grown too dense. And the changes she sees in him feel like early warnings of a storm no one else is preparing for. So now Portia is stepping forward, demanding answers, pushing boundaries, and refusing to be silenced by anyone, not by Curtis, not by the Quartermaines, not by those who claim to have Trina's best interests in mind. Her anger is not just reactionary, it is strategic. She knows that if she waits too long, it won't just be her trust that's broken, it'll be her daughter. The path Trina is being led down feels increasingly like a trap disguised as opportunity. And the deeper Kai is pulled into these new, shadowy alliances, the more dangerous it becomes for everyone around him. Especially Trina. In a town already burning with secrets, Portia is determined to be the one who sets off the next alarm. Because the change happening now isn't just unexpected, it's explosive. And if no one else is brave enough to say it, she will. Whatever Kai is becoming, whatever he's being shaped into, it could cost Trina everything. Carly feels the pressure mounting with every passing day. As if the weight of the entire Corinthos Quartermaine legacy now rests squarely on her shoulders. For years, she fought through betrayals, scandals, courtroom chaos, and heartbreaks to build a life where her children could thrive, even in the stormy world of Port Charles. But now, that vision is slipping. And the reason, to her horror, is Michael. He's no longer the dependable son, the ethical business leader, or the voice of reason in a town where reason is rare. He's changing. Not just emotionally, but philosophically. Something inside him has cracked, and Carly recognizes the signs because she's lived them. She knows what it looks like when someone loses faith in love, in family, in their own moral compass. And what she sees in Michael now is a slow, inevitable transformation into something dangerously unrecognizable. This isn't just a worried mother watching from afar. This is Carly spiraling into an obsession to regain control, to recalibrate her son's trajectory before it crashes into everything she's built. She knows how the trauma has built up, losing Wiley, watching Willow unravel, having Drew slither into every vulnerable corner of their lives, manipulating people under the guise of emotional support. But instead of healing, Michael is hardening. Every decision he makes seems aimed at inflicting pain, on Willow, on Nina, on anyone who dares to challenge him. He uses the children as leverage, weaponizing custody battles not out of necessity but as punishment. He lashes out, isolates himself, and turns cold when faced with compassion. And worst of all, he believes he's right. That scares Carly more than anything else. She's tried gentle talks. She's tried reminders of who he was, the boy who used to hug her before school, the teenager who defended his siblings, the young father who once believed in second chances. But those efforts bounce off Michael like rain on stone. So now, Carly is pivoting. She's turning to the one skill she perfected through years of survival, strategic control. It's no longer about open love, it's about silent influence. Behind the scenes. She's using her connections to slowly box Michael in, setting up legal backchannels through Diane, leveraging Sunny's pull to curb Drew's ambitions. And even discreetly working with Tracy to dismantle the false foundation Drew has built. She's becoming the puppet master, not because she wants power, but because she knows that without her, Michael could destroy everything, including himself. What haunts Carly most is the possibility that Michael, in trying to assert dominance over Drew, might adopt his worst traits. The bitterness. The cunning. The calculated disregard for anyone else's feelings. Carly sees it already in his eyes when he talks about Willow. There's no softness left. Just strategy. She sees it in the way he talks about Sasha, like she's expendable now that she's left with Daisy. She even sees it in how he looks at Sunny, a man he once admired, now a threat to be managed. Michael is isolating himself not because he's independent, but because he's becoming ruthless. And that's a word Carly never wanted to associate with her son. The deeper problem is that Port Charles is responding to this shift. Allies who once supported Michael are growing distant. Tracy sees the arrogance. Jason sees the rigidity. Even Jocelyn, despite her loyalty, senses the coldness creeping in. But no one can reach him the way Carly can. And she's determined to use that last thread of influence before it snaps completely. Every conversation, every public gesture, every veiled warning is now a move in a bigger game, a campaign to bring her son back before the town turns on him, before the family implodes. Before Drew pushes him into a final, catastrophic mistake. Because Drew, the man who pretends to offer stability, is in truth the architect of this emotional erosion. His presence has poisoned everything. He's manipulated Willow, played the victim, presented himself as a protector when in reality, he thrives in the chaos he quietly creates. And Michael, blinded by rage and grief, can't see it. Carly does. And she knows the only way to free Michael is to rip away the curtain Drew hides behind. That's why her obsession is growing, not just with saving Michael, but with eliminating the man corrupting him from within. Carly has always fought fiercely for her family, but this time, the stakes are generational. If she fails, Michael won't just fall, he'll take the entire family name with him. So she pushes harder. She watches closely. She plans. Every dinner invitation. Every private conversation with Sunny, every subtle suggestion to Jason, it's all part of a war Carly is quietly waging. And while the public sees a woman holding her family together, behind the scenes, Carly is in battle mode, tearing down every barrier between her son and the light he once walked in. She knows this is her final chance. Because if Michael fully becomes the man Drew is shaping him into, there will be no redemption. And Carly won't just lose her son. She'll lose everything she spent a lifetime fighting for.